Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Annie and this is Unity Consciousness. Thank you so much for joining me today. Before we get started, I do want to welcome our new subscribers and thank those of you that are returning this week to hear about this week's energy. I did get some very strong channeled messages today as I was, going through some notes and looking at the astrological components of this week and the new moon. So I will definitely point those out, but I do feel that some of those big energetic shifts are beginning to occur that we're really going to appreciate when the spring equinox comes in next month. But let's get started. Let's stay focused on this week. Let's get started. Today, Venus is at 29 degrees of Pisces. Now, that's an anaretic degree, meaning very close to the end of that sign that she's been in, and exalted in the sign of Pisces. So her energy is magnified. Now, she is going to sextile Pluto, which is also at anaretic degree of Capricorn, meaning that energy of transformation is also amplified, right? Now, Venus and Neptune last week were conjunct, and that was very dreamy, any energy, fantasy-like, a lot of illusion, perhaps. And now with Pluto coming in and having a conversation with Venus, again, it is a sextile, so it is positive energy. It's very good energy, easy to work with, but you have to do something to get something. And with Pluto coming in now, it's going to ground us. It's going to take us out of that disillusionment, replacing Neptune with Venus. It's going to bring in some transformation of that energy, more grounded. And interestingly enough, that is sextile. Semi-sextile to Venus at this time is Saturn at anaretic degrees of Aquarius. Yes, Saturn's getting ready to leave Aquarius. That's a whole nother subject we'll talk about shortly. However, our next video, but Saturn at anaretic degrees of Aquarius is inviting us to take ownership and responsibility in that grounding and making choices or transformational shifts relative to money or relationships. Again, it's sextile and semi-sextile energy. So you have to do something to get something. This isn't a trine. You don't just get to sit back and appreciate it. You got to do something to get something. And that could be as simple as making a choice to align yourself with the new. And like I said, with Saturn there, we're being asked to take responsibility of something too, right? There could be something restricted within the confines of that relationship or money, or maybe you've overspent and you've restricted yourself. You know what? This is very positive energy. You're starting to get some of that payback. It's very easy for us to remain grounded now. Or maybe you want to prepare a budget. Maybe great energy for that too. Then on Monday, tomorrow, we have a new super moon in Pisces at 1 degree. And this is the last, I guess, depending on where you're at in the planet, the next new moon in Aries will be at 0 degrees, which is huge. But this is our last new moon in this cycle of 4 at 1 degree of Pisces. And, Pisces is a mutable water sign. So this is all about changing, shifting, but Pisces is about compassion and creativity and imagination. And all of those themes are definitely amplified. With it being a new moon, it's a new cycle. It's a new cycle that's going to last for the next 2 weeks to 30 days, that's for sure. But it is the last sign of the zodiac. So Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. At the time of this new moon, we have 5 planets at anaretic degrees. Now, we spoke about 3 of them earlier. So it would be Pluto at 29 degrees of Capricorn. And just so that we can put this in terms of quantitative understanding relative to Pluto's orbit cycle. So Pluto, it's taken Pluto 248 years to get at this degree of Capricorn, okay? So at the time of this new moon, we've got Pluto at anaretic degree of Capricorn. We've got Saturn at anaretic degree of Aquarius. we've got Venus at anaretic degrees of Pisces, again, very strong. She's exalted in Pisces. And then we have the sun, which is a star, and the moon at 1 degree of Pisces. So all of these planets are within 60 degrees of each other, and they are at anaretic degree or just moved into like one degree of Pisces. What does that mean? That means 60 degrees of change, shifting, changing energy. And to make things even more exciting, we have a Kuiper Belt object, well, several of them, but we're going to focus on Manway. Kuiper Belt object Manway, which has a 289-year orbit, sits at 0 degrees 20 minutes of Aries at the time of this new moon. And Manway is all, it's new Earth. It is the original divine vision. And like I said, it is sitting at 0 degrees of Aries. So let's throw that in our planets and or stars that are at anaretic degree or just crossed into their sign. Now, equally interesting, this new moon is unaspected, meaning it makes no major configurations with other planets. So the moon and the sun are right next to each other. They're conjunct, which makes it a new moon, right? Dark sky. There are no major connections with any other astrological components. Now, as I made this realization and looked at the 60 degree of anaretic planets and Kuiper Belt objects that are at anaretic degree or just crossed into the next sign, I got a channeling really strong. And the channeling was this. Pisces is the 12th sign of the zodiac. And that means the end of a cycle, right? Aries starts a new zodiac year. It is time for us to use this time, this pause, if you will, this unaspected moon, to reflect, contemplate, and appreciate where you've been, what you've done since last year's spring equinox. Pisces is truly the collective understanding of all signs. So we start with Aries, that unbridled energy. Then we moved into Taurus, which gives it a little bit more grounding. Then we move into Gemini, that introduces choices, right? And we go on all the way around the zodiac. And by the time you hit Pisces, it's a collective understanding. It's had a little bit of time in each one of those zodiac signs, capturing some of that energy. So we've got a collective understanding of all the signs of the zodiac over the past year. We find ourselves eager for the Aries season unveil, right? This new Earth that Manway is promising us. But before we can get and fully embody the excitement of that new Earth energy, it really is time for a collective pause, for appreciation of the past year's cycles of energy and our ascension up till this point. Now, very quickly after this new moon, the moon and the sun conjunct, again, making it a new moon at 1 degree of Pisces, Venus moves into Aries. She literally is going to jump from Pisces into Aries, crossing the path of Manway at about 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And what this is, Venus in Aries is very bold. It's very bold. She's coming from water to fire, so it's very steamy. This could be love at first sight. Absolutely could be. It's just full on unbridled desire. And this can apply to fashion, beauty trends. Maybe you want to step into your spring wardrobe a little bit early. Bright reds, bright orange, which is why I picked this shirt. We've got a couple of high energy colors in the shirt. That's why I picked it for today. I figured it was apropos. Anyway, let's get back to the video. But your fashion and beauty sense, you may see this massive shift that occurs around that time as well, and also how you manage money. Then on Tuesday, the 21st, we've got Mercury, which is at 14 degrees of Aquarius, is going to square Uranus in Taurus. Uranus, interestingly enough, Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury. So this energy is somewhat copacetic, even though it's a square. We are going to be asked. Remember, a square isn't something to be afraid of. A square is something that asks us to make a decision, right? And if you also want to include Black Moon Lilith, which is actually a lunar apogee, it's not a planet, it's a measurement, really. But this is a T-square with Black Moon Lilith at 15 degrees of Leo. What does all that mean? That is indicative of surprising news, Mercury, communications. So surprising news or communications, most likely relative to those Black Moon Lilith themes. Autonomy, feminine autonomy, power of the feminine, liberation, equality. Now, keep in mind, Uranus is involved here, so there is instability and things can be shocking. Just be aware of that. Then on Wednesday, the 22nd, we have Mercury, again in Aquarius, but is now going to trine Mars, which is in Gemini. And interestingly enough here, Mercury rules Gemini, and Mars has been retrograde in Gemini, it feels like, for my whole life. Now, granted, it was last August, but that's a really, really, really long orbit time for Mars to be in Gemini. Let's break it down. So now we're beginning to, it's easy for us to understand the long Mars retrograde cycle. And like I said, we're still in it. Mars does not come out of shadow until the 15th of March. But now Mars is coming up to speed, and Mercury as well, being trining that, is making it easy, simple. It's coming up to speed. They're speaking to each other because, again, Mars rules Gemini. Mercury rules Gemini. Mercury was truly the undertone of this Mars and Gemini theme because it rules Gemini. Now, Mars itself is all about power and drive. And Mars retrograde season took that away from us. It took away our drive, our focus, our warrior spirit, our determination, our aggression. And for many, including myself, we found ourselves frustrated. Thinking about that, you can now understand where that void hit you. Now that Mars is coming back up to speed, how can we use Mars influence, again, focus, drive, spirit, determination, more effectively? For the collective, it's third house energy. Gemini is third house energy. And Mars being in that house means the energy signified from the third house for the collective was retracted, right? Communications, lower mind, early age environment, our neighbors, siblings, our thoughts, and how we formulate our thoughts. It's time to unpack the frustration that Mars retrograde cycle left you in, or where you felt frustrated. Hopefully you took some notes, maybe kept a journal about that Mars retrograde, and now you can really start to unpack it. Now you're going to be able to take that Mars energy, the actual focus and drive, unpack some of that frustration so that we can fully embody our power, our drive, our warrior-like spirit for the greater good moving forward. And, it's difficult to appreciate things if you have them every single day. You kind of, if you're in a sunny climate and you have sun every day, you start to lose appreciation for that. Well, Mars did that for us, right? By stifling Mars energy in the sign of Gemini for as long as it has, we can fully now appreciate that lack and what that means to us. And more importantly, I think we are understanding what powerlessness feels like, and we can appreciate that as it relates to the collective. Okay, well, that's all I have for you this week. Powerlessness, compassion, communities, I think it's all going to be on our minds. Now, I decided to use the Rider-Waite Rider-Waite, the traditional Rider-Waite deck today to pull a card. And this card actually jumped out. But I'm almost embarrassed to show you this deck. I've had this deck since early 2000s, and it's literally falling apart. It's taped together at the sides. But nonetheless, this is the traditional Rider-Waite deck of mine. And the card that was pulled for today is the King of Cups. I'll bring that up nice and close so you can see it. And the King of Cups speaks about remaining calm. If you look at this card closely, you'll see that he's got a cup in his hand. He's got a fish on his necklace, on the chain around his neck, and also there's a little fish up here in the corner too. The seas behind him and at his feet are tumultuous. There's a ship in this corner that is trying to navigate these very, very, very rough seas. So this card tells me it's time for us to remain calm. Be wise. Apply compassion, even though you're surrounded with tumultuous surroundings or turbulence of any kind. You have two fish in this card. That speaks about creativity. He's got a scepter in his hand as well. And the scepter is up. It's standing up. So that speaks about emotional balance. Again, a lot of fluidity in this card. It is a water card, asking us to have emotional stability, balance, and control, even in the times of turbulent surroundings. Well, that's all I have for you this week. I thoroughly consider it a blessing to have you with me today, and I thank you for your time. If you like this video, please do click the like button. If you know somebody that could be helped by this video, please do share it with them. Spread the message if you would. If you want to know when videos are being dropped, click the subscribe button and you will be notified when a video is being dropped. I have to tell you, typically I will not look ahead to the next astrological event, the next moon event, which will be a full moon. I did it anyway this morning, and I have to tell you, I'm super excited. I'm going to stay grounded in my 12th house energy, the end of the zodiac. Let's talk about this new moon in Pisces and contemplate, think about my Mars retrograde cycle. But I have to tell you, it's really, really hard for me to confine my excitement. This full moon in Virgo on the 7th is going to release the restrictions of Saturn and Aquarius, and that is something to celebrate. I hope you have a fantastic week. And again, I thank you for tuning in today. Namaste.